The expectations many designers have don't necessarily result once their careers begin. Oftentimes, designers find their way into the business by starting in another field, and that makes for an interesting journey. I remember being in college and thinking about all the things I wanted to do once I started my career. And if you would have asked me during that time at Washington State University what I was going to be doing in 2025, this would not have been anywhere in the conversation. But at the same time, I really cannot imagine myself doing anything else. And I've been doing this since 2013. Prior to that, I had a first career in radio and broadcast media. Funny how life works, isn't it? I can't think of anything more different than this. I practice a unique process of writing and prepping for the conversations you hear on the show. I have the types of conversations with creatives that I want to have with them, meaning I find you're in discovering, I find the discovery, what makes designers, artists, makers, architects, and creatives work, what drives them to do what they do, and what inspires them to reach the high levels they've achieved. Many of the conversations you hear on this show start with, and it's so funny, so what are we talking about today? Or you simply hear my response to that question in a cold open. I don't edit that out, nor do I edit the conversations we have, because I want you to hear the stream of consciousness. What you don't know is the amount of prep I do for each conversation. As a matter of fact, the guests you hear don't see that either. They come into this not knowing necessarily what we're going to be talking about. And I like that. I decided to model this show on the very conversations that I have at trade events. And if you're in the business, I'm sure you do too. The individual interactions that take place that make the trade events so truly special. You simply cannot create that vibe. And I know that. But I want you to feel like you're in Vegas, LA, or Paris, at KBIS, West Edge, or Maison et Objet, with a cocktail in hand, and listening in on a conversation between two peers. And know that what you're about to hear is going to enrich you in some special way. Perhaps it's hearing how someone else built their practice. Maybe it's what discovery led them to design the way that they do, or even how their previous career inspired or motivated them to where they are today. I want this to inspire you to perhaps pivot, reorganize your firm, or employ a new strategy or technique, because that's fun. It's inspiring. It's motivating. And who couldn't use a little bit more of that? Well, I hope you can, because that's what you're getting today. As you listen in on my chat with New Jersey designer Allison Handler of Allison Handler Design. And you're going to hear all about it right after this. I am just incredibly proud of this partnership I've got with Thermosol. They have been presenting partners of Convo by Design going on 5 years now. And there is a certain amount of pride that comes with saying that the show is presented by the company that is the best in the world at what they do. Thermosol engineers the most exceptional smart shower products and steam shower systems worldwide, full stop. And it's for a few reasons. First of all, they were the first company to design and patent the technology here in the United States, dating back to 1958. Thermosol, a US-based manufacturer based in Round Rock, Texas, employs an engineering team that designs, tests, and continuously refines the product. Their quality control team tests every single steam generator before it departs the factory. Who else does that? Nobody that I know of. I have the pleasure of working with some world class designers and architects who tell me, and if you're in the business, you know this, that the idea of luxury has changed, especially when clients want a spa like bathroom. Steam is mandatory, or it's just not considered a luxury. And if you want to add steam, you have only one true option, my opinion, and that's Thermosol. Mitch Altman, third generation CEO of this family owned company of 65 years, continues to innovate in the bathroom and shower space through technological marvels such as intelligent showering systems, sound therapy, aromatherapy, technical interfaces, and so much more. And now Thermosol, the industry leader in steam bath equipment and technology since 1958, as I mentioned, is enhancing its already stellar family of products with the new indoor and outdoor luxury saunas available in 3 designs. The configurations are absolutely amazing, and you should probably go check them out. Indoor and outdoor options. It's amazing. You really do need to check them out. Go to thermosol.com or at Thermosol on the socials. It's funny too, because I do love the question, what are we talking about today, for a couple of reasons. One, it implies a certain amount of trust, which I appreciate, like showing up without knowing what we're talking about.
I'm ready for anything.
And I
Bring it
love that.
on.
And I love that about you. And I want to get into that in a minute. But the other part of it is that I don't I don't like to send out questions in
Mhm.
advance simply because then you get canned answers. And I've found that having creative people with canned answers is not a good combination. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just it's one of
Want to
those
keep
things.
us on our toes.
Exactly. Exactly. And I get the feeling that you specifically probably kind of like that a little bit.
I work well under pressure.
Has it always been that way?
Sure. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah, like I'm quick. I can make a joke if I feel weird or something. So yeah, pivot.
I kind of feel like, especially in design, you have to be that way. How did you get started?
So I have a 20-year prior career, prior life in the fashion industry. Um, I started my business about 3.5 years ago. And so the first 20 years of my, career was spent in the fashion industry in New York City. Um, and I so I've always obviously had that creative side to me and always knew I wanted to be in fashion. I do have a business degree though. So I I was in merchandising when I was in fashion. So the way that I kind of describe what that is it's half creative, half business, which is not dissimilar from running a business in interior design, right? So um I guess basically the long story short, I felt, especially after COVID and everything, that I was kind of ready for a change. I had a little bit of that. I work from home life. I live in New Jersey. I have 2 young kids, and I was sick and tired of schlepping into the city every day. And I was just kind of feeling a little disingenuous about, or whatever the word is, about fashion industry. Just when I first started, I was like, I'm going to be Carrie Bradshaw and I'm going to live in New York City, that whole thing. And it was great. And I did it and I had a great career and I learned a lot. And I wouldn't be where I am now, obviously, without that. But I was ready for a different challenge and experience. And I also loved the flexibility that I had when, work from home life. And again, having young children and everything, I just felt like I needed a change. And simultaneously, so this was going on in the background in my brain. And then simultaneously, we had built 2 of our own homes. One was a full gut renovation, and then we moved right smack in the middle of COVID to a new construction home. And had friends, family reach out to me and be like, oh my God, I love your house. Help me with mine, whatever. And it was that kind of organic process that kind of put the bug in me. And through a bunch of like, other fun things and silly things that happened, um, I launched my business in June of 21, kind of as like a side hustle, not knowing what was going to happen. I was still working full time. Um, and it it started as like virtual design. So I had a few projects that were, one was in Arizona, one was in Pennsylvania. Like it was like e-design, virtual design. But that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I kind of through listening to podcasts actually on like Luann Niagara's podcast was one that fueled me and kind of taught me a lot about the business of how to run an interior design business and how they make money and, you know, what a freaking receiving warehouse is and all that stuff because I had no idea. And so, through that, I ended up making a few bucks doing the e-design thing and told myself and was validated by my husband that, if I felt overwhelmed and I wanted to, put myself into this full force, I'm this is going somewhere. But I, in my mind, was like, I'm not ready to do that until I get my first real, not real, but like local job. And remember, it was on a Monday. And I went into the office, like burnt out because I'm burning the candle at both ends. I'm, working my real job. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. And now nights and weekends, I'm doing this whole design thing. And I was like, all right, well, once I get my first real job, my first, in person design job, I'll quit my job. So it was Monday morning. I go to the office. I think 3 hours later, I get a phone call, got my first in person job, quit my job. I ended up so I started my business in June, ended up leaving my fashion job in August, and have been doing this full time ever since. So that's my kind of short winded, long winded story.
How is fashion merchandising like interior design?
It's similar in a lot of ways. So, I mean, again, like you have to be so what merchandising is so I worked my last job before I left was working for Donna Karen. And so big company. And you have to in merchandising, you have to, like I said, you have to wear both hats. You have to understand the business side of things because ultimately it is a business and you got to make money and cost engineering and all of that stuff, but obviously you have to be creative as well. So like my job was basically a liaison between the sales team and the design team, kind of filtering all the information. So what were all the best sellers? What fabrics were working? What were the trends? Going shopping in the stores and seeing what was going on in the stores and maybe buying samples as inspiration and stuff like that. So it's different, but it's similar where you have to kind of tap into the same place in your brain, especially as an entrepreneur and a business owner, right? Because you have to understand how to run a business and understand at the end of the day, this is a business and I'm here to make money, right? Like I love design and I love playing with fabrics and all of that stuff, but I'm here to make money, right? So in that way, it's similar. I learned how to run a business. I learned what a margin was. I learned what a P&L was. I learned, all of that stuff. And obviously I was able to hone my creativity and I say that I'm right brain, left brain, because I'm lucky. I do have both sides of, excuse me, of that I can tap into when I need to. Um, but I really was able to hone those skills through my career in the fashion industry.
Which I think is great, but I think there's a couple of things that you don't get. And by the way, I love this. I love the stories. That's why I do this. I love the stories behind it, and I think that um, it's interesting because for me, when I started this show in 2013, there were no other design podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
There just weren't.
Mm-hmm.
There were no business of design podcasts. But
Mm-hmm.
since then, there has been this proliferation, this explosion of design podcasts. And I'm just curious because one of the things that I look, I'm not a designer, right? But I think it's interesting because if you listen to 10 different design oriented business podcasts, you'll get 10 different models, methods, and techniques for doing everything from margins to how to get new clients to, I
Mhm.
mean, you name it, as part of the business.
Sure.
As someone that was new to this game, how did you differentiate all the noise, parse through it, and figure out what worked for you?
I was just authentically myself. Like, I just, again, like I have a sense of business. I understand business. And also, you know, I grew up, I was one of the first generations to be on social media, right? So, like, we were on Facebook I was in Facebook during college, and then Instagram started, and, all of that stuff. And now there's like all the other things, which like my kids are on. And like, I don't, like, that's not my world, but neither here nor there. But so I always understood the power of social media and influencing and all of that stuff. And I'm also naturally a consumer too. So like I know what I like. I see I'm on Instagram. I see what I'm resonating with. I see, what designers how they are, putting themselves out there and doing it. So I think for me, like it was a lot of that. So I live in an area, so I'm in Bergen County, New Jersey, which is right outside of New York City. It is saturated with designers. I mean, saturated. And um, I had a vision for my business. I knew what I wanted and what I still am obviously striving to achieve. You never stop growing and all of that. But I had an idea of the things I needed to do to get there, but I also knew that I needed to be authentically myself because listen, let's be honest, I have a personality. I am who I am, love me or hate me, I am myself. And interior design is a very, in my opinion, personal business. So like when you're hiring an interior designer, it's a very personal decision. You're literally going to be working with this person for a year plus, talking about very intimate details of your life, spending a lot of money with this person. They're going to be all up in your finances, right? Talking about how you use your toilet, shower situations, all of that stuff. So, you have to be able to connect and resonate with this person, I think. And I felt for me, like putting myself out there, my face out there, making me be a human being. Like I have two kids. Like my kids sometimes will make, you know what I mean? Like I'm a real normal person. I like to drink rosé, all of that stuff. Like by humanizing myself, I felt like that was something that helped my business grow very rapidly because I put a face to the name, put a face to the brand, and I became a human being to people. Whereas interior design is like, it could be perceived as like we don't care about people's budgets and we just want to spend your money and we walk into your house and we're disgusted, which is like so ridiculous and not true at all. But like, you know, I feel like when you humanize yourself and you say, hey guys, I'm just like you. Like, I'm not going to judge you. People will maybe feel more comfortable reaching out if you've never worked with a designer before or whatever it is. And that for sure helped set me apart and differentiate me to the point where like I am a brand now. Like I get recognized on the street. It's weird, but like I do. So I think, that set me apart. Obviously, there's also like my design sense, and I am this area of New Jersey tends to be a lot more traditional. And that is not me. I am bold. I am modern. I push boundaries. Like, again, like love it or hate it. Like, I am organically and authentically myself. And people are noticing that. And it is setting me apart.
So, a couple of things that I'm curious about. One is once you go out and hang your shingle and you start the business and putting yourself out there, how did you go about getting new clients? How do you go about getting new clients? How do you manage the amount of business that you can take in? One of the things that I've heard from designers that are relatively new to the game is they would go out as soon as they started, this fear like what if I can't make the business survive? So they push themselves out there, they get clients, and now they've got the other problem where they're too busy to effectively do the business that they acquired.
Mm-hmm.
Because of your business background, ahead of that you kind of learn to work the flow, But design is different.
Mhm,
Finding people to trust you with
mhm.
six-figure budgets, with a heavy investment, that's not easy to do, especially now, as you mentioned, where certain areas are inundated and saturated with design talent. It's not so much about how do you set yourself apart, but how did you secure the business?
So multiple ways. I mean, I knew very early on, I was a big believer of investing in my business. So I knew very early on that I needed to invest in photography. I needed to put out there what I wanted to. It's like dress for the job you want, or whatever that, phrase is. So my very first project, which was my own home, I hired one of the top local photographers, spent a boatload of money on it because I knew that my portfolio, what I'm putting out there, is my resume. It's everything. And in my opinion, the quality of that of the photos, I mean, they're just like designers, there's designers at all different price points and they all offer different services. Like for me, that was very important. I was not afraid to invest in my business. So I got, in my opinion, and I still work with her to this day and adore her, one of the best photographers in this area to shoot my projects. So I started out with, that. I also feel like you got to walk the walk. You talk the talk, you walk the walk, right? And I, a lot of these people that are spending hundred, six figures, seven figures with me, um, see me, they feel like I fit in their world, because like I said, I talk the talk, I walk the walk. So that is a part of it as well. People have to feel comfortable with you and relate to you. And I also think, like I said before, like becoming a human being and just relating to somebody as a human being makes them feel organically more comfortable and like to say, hey, come into my world, spend my money, whatever, I trust you. So, there was that. But I mean, the way that I really first started was through referrals. So I have like friends who were realtors in this area, and like they would refer me to like certain people. And at the beginning, I would take any project that came my way. So, like a powder room, decorating a built in, whatever it is. And regardless of whether or not my aesthetic necessarily aligned with what these people wanted, or they just wanted an interior designer's opinion, right? An interior designer, because like I don't even know if I could have called myself that at that point, right? But I did. And with my like kind of business background and my swag and all of that, like I was able to get in the door on a few projects and learn what I needed to learn. And again, I would take projects that, and there's nothing wrong with that, that is how everybody starts, but that didn't necessarily align with my style. And so it took a little bit of the joy out of it for me, but it was okay because I was getting my feet wet. I was learning, and now, 3.5 years later, we're at the point where people come to us because they want our aesthetic. They want Allison Handler design. But it takes time to get there, and obviously like as you continue to hone your skill set and your business acumen and your experience and what you're putting out there on Instagram and what you're putting out, like you become more and more trustworthy and more of like a real person. So, or a real designer, I should say. I don't think that's the right word either, but like a trusted advisor, maybe, if that makes sense.
So, and I see that. So the other part of that is how do you recommend, along your journey, how would you recommend a new designer get up to speed? All the things that you have to do, working with showrooms, finding your true partners, the ones that can really help you out when you really need them. You started out at a very challenging time when it was hard to get material.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? And then where have you been? How do you specify? How do you learn about the materials that you want to work with or that your clients are looking for? How do you find your options?
So that was another thing that I did very early on is I tried to use my gut feeling and I aligned myself with the right people, right vendor partners, right? Right, like I did my research. I went to different tile showrooms. I went to different this. I went to different that. I went to different cabinet, showrooms and tried to really align myself with the people who A, I connected with, and B, who I could lean on, right? And like I knew would help guide me and teach me and what I don't know about cabinets, because I really didn't know much, So I aligned myself with the right vendor partners and trades to become basically an extent. They were basically are still an extension of my business, right? So like I put them to work for me. I say, here you go. Here's the plans for the kitchen. I need, you to, this is the color palette I want. Here's some inspo. Send me back the elevations. So they're doing that. I'm not paying them for that. And it's an extension of my business. But in the meantime, obviously, like I was soaking up all of the knowledge and the information and just being on job sites too. And obviously aligning yourself with the right GCs too is incredibly important, because they would teach you, they have taught me so much. And I'm incredibly loyal to my vendors and incredibly loyal to my trades that I work with. Because I really have learned, and we've grown up together kind of. Um, and then I also am constantly immersing myself in, like I said before, like I am a consumer too. Like I'm out there, like I love shopping, like that's my fashion background, like, but I love all of it. So like I'm constantly on the internet, I'm constantly sourcing, I'm constantly on Pinterest. I go to market, twice a year to High Point. I constantly have new vendors in the showroom. I just had one this morning, like fabric vendors. Like I'm constantly learning and seeing what's out there and exposing myself to new and better and growing that way.
You are listening to my conversation with Allison Handler. We'll be right back. The absolute best specifying designers, architects, and landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You just have to be. And you have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That is one of the reasons why I am so incredibly proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, the aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you my board flipping stories about my own wood decks over the years. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious about the environment, and they want the same of their materials and the companies that manufacture their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood. Color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior. It's been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled materials. 85% recycled materials. Their advanced PVC vintage and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech. You can also check them out directly, timbertech.com. As a busy professional designer, you know how important it is to find the right partnerships. Partnerships that allow you to specify the right products for every project. Professionals like you don't just have time to sit around and waste, right? So let me tell you about one of my partnerships. Pacific Sales is here to serve you with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commissioned professionals to help you specify the right product for all your projects. Non-commissioned. That means their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that, with over 60 years of service in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. And you will find all your favorite brands, like Monogram, and their commitment to providing exceptional products, starting with materials. Monogram sources commercial-grade stainless steel on their refrigerators, unscratchable sapphire glass on their cooktop knobs, durable marine-grade bearings on their dishwasher racks. Monogram takes inspiration from the leading-edge materials used in the high-end automotive and aeronautics industry to provide you with lasting beauty and exceptional quality. The beauty is backed by the same level of attention to performance, which is why Monogram appliances are trusted and sought after by chefs all over the country. Chain-driven French oven doors that can be opened with one hand, and an industry-exclusive hearth oven that allows for all-electric indoor brick oven-style cooking without the need for external ventilation. These are just a few of the things that make Monogram so special. Pacific Sales features Monogram appliances, and Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team is here to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. And here's the cherry on top: access. Access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands like Monogram. Visit a Pacific Sales showroom today to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, where excellence meets expertise. So you've been to High Point twice. You go twice a year?
This year I'll go twice a year, twice.
Yeah.
In the past I've gone once, but this year I'll go twice, and we'll see, what happens.
What other shows do you attend?
So High Point is like the big mama, right? Like that's like, in my opinion, the best. Everything is there, everybody's there, and like plus it's just so much fun. So, there's that. But I just went to BDNY in the city. So like if you live in this area and you can't get yourself out to High Point, there's tons of smaller shows that happen like at the Javits Center or wherever that are easy to get to. You just drive in, drive out. They're much smaller, but it gets the job done. And then, so what other shows? I've been to KBIS, which I think is great too. It's a different animal, it's less furniture and, but it's plumbing, cabinet hardware, cabinet vendors, more of like that type but it's still a great experience. So, I mean, those two.
So because KBIS is such a behemoth, it's funny because you'll have a High Point market, which is basically, I don't know how many showrooms are there, but it's a ton.
Yeah.
And it's outside. It's hard to navigate just because it's a challenge. It's a city unto itself. It really is. KBIS paired with IBS is the same thing. It's all inside, it's right. 1 million square feet of convention center space. How do you prepare for a new show? Do you prepare or do you just go out, wing it, and see what happens?
What I would do to prepare is obviously like I would just go on the website, like the show website, see what vendors are going to be there, earmark the ones that I definitely knew I wanted to make it a point to see and, kind of map it out a little bit. But then the rest of it's really organic. Like you just go, you walk around, you see what you see, you wander into the booth that you wander into. And, that's, in my opinion, the best way to do those types of shows, because yes, of course, there's the brands like that, you want to see. You want to go see Kohler, you want to go see MTech, you want to go see Vanguard Furniture, but then as you're making your way to those places, you might stumble across this little guy that you've never seen before, but they have amazing light fixtures or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, writing it down, and sourcing it for my next project. So like, to me, that's the best way to do it. It just kind of all happens organically. And like, that's my favorite part about doing that,
Okay, fair. But I'm going to put the caveat on this, and I'm going to call it a disclaimer, call it a warning for new creatives who are going out to your first KBIS in 2025. Don't do that.
Why? That's what I did.
Okay. Plan accordingly. First thing, wear comfortable shoes.
Yes. Oh, yes. That.
Okay. Second thing, you can't do it all in a day. Don't try.
No, you can't do it all in a day. If you're going to High Point, you go to High Point for like 3 days, and you spend 3 days at High Point.
Third of all, bring snacks.
Yeah, they have snacks, but yes.
Which are you talking about?
Everywhere, every booth you go to, they're giving you
what's funny?
They're giving you trail mix.
Listen, you cannot survive on past hors d'oeuvres and champagne all day. And it's funny. Listen,
speak for
Allison,
yourself.
Well, it's funny too. This is one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough. It really doesn't, which is why I bring it up, because I think it's so important. Like, I will tell you something, when I go to KBIS, now listen, I'm not a designer, but I feel like our experience at a show, like a KBiz or a High Point is similar. Not the same, but it's
Yeah,
similar
it is.
insofar as you're looking at brands and products that you want to see for specification purposes.
Mhm.
I'm looking for the stories, but we're still, looking at the same
And we're still human
niche.
beings and we need to eat.
And I will tell you, like KBiz is one of those things where you just can't survive on hors d'oeuvres, candy, and champagne for 2.5, 3 days. You just not if you want to be the
Fair.
best. And I think it's one of those things that I think is really important because for a couple of reasons. And I want your take on this. It's not an inexpensive endeavor to go to these shows.
No,
It's incredible. And when I say inexpensive, financially or time commitment,
correct.
right? And if you're taking yourself out of the studio for 3 days, 3.5 plus travel, then you have to make the most because your time, you're burning money. Like when
Hmm.
you're not in the studio, you're not working. So I feel like, and KBiz is one of those things where you're in a convention center. So the actual food offerings are limited. And it's one of those things that people don't think about enough.
It's true. They do have like, concession stands and stuff, right? Like in the back and stuff.
Yeah, they do. But if you're walking, you're literally
Okay,
walking
fair.
5 miles a day in a convention center, and if you're trying to go from one convention, from A to C to get food and then back to A, the other part is, planning a map and doing it accordingly
Hmm.
is one of those things like start at one end and work your way to the other. It just
Right,
feels like it's one of those things that is not,
right,
nobody teaches you that,
right.
and it's not
True,
innate.
true. And I mean, at least I can speak for High Point though. Like in the morning, at breakfast time, at lunchtime, like especially the main showrooms, the bigger showrooms, they have a spread, right? So like they have food, they have whatever you need, all throughout the day. There's snacks. People are giving you this, people are giving you that. So like if you talk to like your industry friends too, like prior to going to High Point, everybody will tell you, well, this showroom has the best lunch. So make sure you go to this showroom around lunchtime. So like you'll get those little types of tidbits too. Um,
It's so funny too. By the way, years ago I was talking to a new designer who went to KBiz for the first time, and we were talking about it and in advance. And I was asking her, about this stuff, and she was talking about how she was going to wear her pencil skirt and her Louboutins and I was like, okay,
bad idea.
okay,
Listen,
it's
I
not a
get it. You
fashion
want to be
show.
cute. I get it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, it's not the time. Not the time. You got to be comfortable. Get
Now,
yourself a cute little pair of flats and call it a day.
and the other part of that too is, working with new manufacturers and at a show in particular and trying to look. I think it's valuable because if you can bring back the information, the knowledge, like if you can actually go out and touch things and see how they
Super
look in real
important.
in
Sit on
real.
couches. It's super important.
Yeah. And when you come back with that, now when you, for specification purposes, how do you onboard a new, like, sometimes you'll have a client who says, I want this, and maybe it's something that you've never specified before,
Hmm.
and you might not again, but it's a special request, so
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, you'll go with it. But if it's something like working with an appliance manufacturer, like a Monogram, because they have so many different offerings, when you
Hmm.
go to the trade shows, you actually have this opportunity that is a greater experience
Hmm.
than walking into a showroom, because sometimes a showroom won't have everything. But
Right.
so how do you onboard new partners, and then do you find yourself buying into a loyalty based on what you've seen and heard? Because now you're familiar with that brand. Are you then more likely to recommend it and specify it?
100%. And, for me, one of the, and like the original impetus to go to High Point was I knew I was going to get so much done while I was there. Like, yes, it was great to go and have the experience and whatever, but like I also knew I need to source for 3 projects right now and I could just do it on the spot. So, going there with my checklist of exactly what I needed, a sectional that's 118 by, 78 and whatever it is, and in a performance fabric and a light, brass light, whatever, I don't need to keep doing that. But having that list and then obviously seeing things in person and being excited about it and kind of knowing that this was all going to work in my design and like specifying it on the spot, or not necessarily specifying it on the spot, but taking pictures of everything. And then one thing I highly recommend doing is like if you see something you love at any showroom, take a picture of the item and then take a picture of the tag right afterwards. So like you have item tag, because otherwise you'll never remember what anything is. And then before you go into every showroom, take a picture of the name of the showroom so you like have chronological, But anyway,
Sorry. Side note: what do you
yeah.
then do? What do you do then with your photo catalogs when you get back to the studio?
So certain things I'll already know, like are going into a certain project or are going to be pitched for a certain project, and I'll just reference back to it. And then other things like I'll just use as inspo. So like I mean, I was at High Point in I guess it was October, so not that long ago. But even from last April when I went, like I'm still going back, like searching High Point on my phone and like referencing back and like being like, oh yeah, I really loved that. And that was really fun. And and then going to makegoods.com and looking it up online or whatever it was, so I'm constantly using that as a resource. But also, you know, I I also post in real time on Instagram while I'm there. Like people love that because they love following along and seeing all the new and the cool. And so I'll have specific clients too who will be like, oh my God, I love that. We need that for my project. That happens all the time. And it's kind of part of the goal too, or I'm working with clients live. So I'll say, here's all 5 lights that I really loved. All of them would work in your project. Pick one or whatever it is. Or I also like in High Point specifically, I like doing the vintage shop. And the vintage shop, you have to buy on the spot, right? So like either I will source specifically for a project or I'll just fall in love with something and I just buy it and find a place to put it later. So I mean, constantly it's a massive resource for me.
So it's funny too because that's the product side. When you're going to these shows too, and I ask this question because we're just coming off of the West Edge Design Fair in Santa Monica, of which I've been working with them for a number of years. I do all the programming for the theater. And every year, when I start putting together the concepts that we're going to be talking about on stage, and for a November show, we really start thinking about it in April.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to predict where the market's going to be at that time. But this year was different. This year was really interesting. And I want your take on this too. It's such a bifurcated market right now. Like you have some designers who are slammed, just so busy they don't know what to do with themselves. Then you have the others that
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot of projects going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the clients are confused. Like we did this panel program called What's Next, how the recent election is going to affect.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about politics so much, but it was about the ramifications
Sure.
of an election
It's a
where
real thing.
you have, regardless of red or blue, R or D, whichever side you're on, if there are tariffs that are imposed and it's going to be 10 to 20% on Canada, Mexico, the European Union, 60% on China, that's going to affect your budgets as a
Mm-hmm.
designer. Whether your clients are Republican or Democrat, it doesn't really matter. That will affect your how do
Mm-hmm.
you how do you plan for all of the changes? And it feels like the changes are happening more rapidly. AI and AI design. I mean, look, what I have been telling people are confused about AI. And what I've told them is you're not going to lose, if you're a designer, you're not going to lose a client because of AI, but you will probably lose the client because there's another designer who knows how to work with AI.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate all of these changes in real time and do the shows? And I'm leaning in on the shows because for our industry, those are educational opportunities that are not just individually like I'm going to go learn this. It's a place where people go to learn things about the industry, but I don't feel like many of the shows actually have these kinds of conversations now.
Right. Um, good point. And I mean, I feel like they do, but people, you have to know about them and you have to make it a point to attend them, and it's very important. I agree with that. I mean, KBIS has some great ones. High Point has some great, speaking engagements and stuff too. KBIS specifically though really does. And you have to make it a point to get there and to learn about these things. I mean, if you're asking how I manage it while still like manage all of these other things going on while still manage a business, I have an amazing team. And that I couldn't do it without them. I mean, as my business has grown, my role has changed, and I've had to ebb and flow with that and learn how to delegate and, learn how what so for example, I am not a technically trained designer. We've discussed this. I don't have a background in design. I did not go to school for it. I do not know how to do a CAD drawing. I do not want to know how to do a CAD drawing. That is not where my time is best spent. So I knew very, excuse me, very early on that I needed to hire for that, whether it was freelance or bring somebody on full time or part time or whatever it was. So I have a team now of multiple people, but of designers who that's what they do, in addition to obviously their creative energy and all of us working together, like they really help me manage the project. They're doing all the designing. They're doing all, not designing, like I'm still the creative head, obviously, but like they're doing all the CAD drawings. They're doing all the AI drawings, the renderings, all of that stuff. They're young, they're young, cool girls. Like I'm not, but they are, so like they know what's going on and what the new programs are, and they're staying updated, and I'm focusing my time and attention on other things like networking, like onboarding new clients, like I still am the creative head. So like I still am very involved in overseeing obviously the process and everything. Finding new vendors, going to the trade shows. Like my role has evolved over time, and you know, I couldn't do this and run this business without having a team behind me. Not a chance.
Do you do mostly design work, or do you do a lot of construction ground up?
Mostly construction ground up, but it's both. So like
So, no, sorry, go ahead.
so we'll manage a project from start to finish. So whether they're, very high-end custom renovations or new construction from the ground up. I also have an arm of my business where we do luxury spec builds too. Um, but the majority of those projects, when I'm being brought on, we're being brought on at the very beginning from the architectural plan stage all the way through furnishing.
So,
So it's all of it.
do you work with a specific contractor, a group of contractors, or whichever contractor is working on said project?
I've learned that lesson the hard way. And again, like to what I was saying before about having my team that I'm very loyal to, like, you know, to me, contractor designer relationship is a sacred relationship. It is the most important relationship, especially when you're heavily construction focused, which we are. Um, the most sacred relationship that you can have, the communication that you have, the understanding of, this is how we pass our drawings and how we pass our specs, and you need to tell me when you need something, and so I can get it to you in that amount of time. And I trust you. Like if I can't be on site, I trust you to make certain decisions, for me. So like it's so important to have that relationship. So I do have a couple, because everybody has different skill sets, of contractors that I work with. I will, of course, for the right project, work with a new contractor, or a different contractor. But to me, the relationship and communication is the most important. Nothing more important than that. And through, trials and tribulations and experience, I've found my team, and I very strongly prefer to stay with them.
So, when it comes to working with the contractors, will you then um, offload specification of certain purchases, exterior materials, appliances, things like that? They will do the purchasing.
And yes and no. So exterior materials, trim work, doors, stuff like that. Like, yeah, they'll typically do the purchasing of that. I'll still specify, but they'll do the purchasing of it. But obviously all the FF&E, like it's us.
What about on the appliance side?
Um, so appliances are interesting because they're like one of the biggest purchases that you're going to make, in that in your build process. But like I certainly am not an appliance expert. So again, I turn to my vendors. I have a strong relationship with Ferguson that I work with for appliances, and they have a great showroom locally. So we go there and we specify what we need, and I just kind of weigh in on that's pretty. I don't like that, and let my vendor, who's the expert, um, do her thing. Obviously, like again, I'm there for support. I'm there for aesthetic guidance, but and like plus like obviously these clients, like I said, we know each other. I know how they work. I know how they want to use their kitchen. So I can say, I really think you need a cooktop and two wall ovens versus whatever, so or this
It's
size fridge
interesting
is
though.
too small for you.
It's interesting though. You know, nowadays I don't think clients know how they want to use their kitchen. I don't think they have any clue how they want to use their kitchen because, we I started having these conversations where the introduction of secondary kitchens sort of seeped into the conversation
Mm-hmm.
around 2017
Mm-hmm.
in Southern California. And it wasn't just your historical, like this is a kosher kitchen, so we've got a bigger space, two of
Right.
everything. We've got an Asian kitchen, so we've got a kitchen for show, and then we've got a working dirty kitchen for odors and and splatter and that sort
Right.
of the high heat. So we would have a different kitchen for that. But now
Mm-hmm.
it was people wanted dual kitchen scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
multiple kitchen scenarios where you've got a master main kitchen with a scullery or a butler's pantry with a wine bar or a coffee bar, weed bars depending on the state and cities you're living in. The outdoor kitchen now paired to and matching indoor kitchens, where now you'll have a suite isn't an ensuite. Maybe it's got a bathroom, but unless it's got a kitchenette, now it's considered. I mean, it is getting absolutely ridiculous. And not to mention that, but you've got this hybrid scenario in a master bath where due to GLP-1s and makeup, you'll have refrigeration, you'll have warming drawers for towels
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
bathroom. You've almost got a kitchen setup in a bathroom. It's extraordinary what's happening right now, but
Yeah.
it also, from a use standpoint, it's like taking someone from a horse and buggy and putting them in a car and talking about transportation. They have no
Right.
idea. How do you
Right.
navigate that?
I'm actually doing a house right now. We're doing four kitchens. Four.
Yeah.
Main kitchen, outdoor kitchen, basement kitchen, pool house kitchen. Four kitchens, four sets of appliances, four different uses. Obviously the main kitchen is the main kitchen, but
Yeah. And I bring that up too, because I think it's interesting, due to, pro rewards programs like Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home is a major sponsor of our show. It's a Best Buy company, and they have this pro rewards program. And I bring this up specifically because I want your take on it. When it comes to business and the business of design, which is not something I get into on a regular basis, but during this conversation, I think it's relevant.
yeah.
There are these opportunities for designers to create new revenue streams if they hadn't taken advantage of this before,
Mm-hmm.
or to simply maximize revenue potential. It just seems like if designers really want to maximize their revenue potential, you have to kind of bring back the appliance specification
Mm-hmm.
internally, because
100%.
from a 19% appliance spend on a project, now if you're doing multiple kitchens, that 19% is going through. I mean, it's getting exponentially larger.
Right. I mean, when you're doing a home with four kitchens, it's all relative, right? So like it still may be 19% of the total spend because there's also 12 bathroom, whatever, but
Well, but the difference there is that you're enlarging the budget
yeah, yeah, for
to
sure.
accommodate a specific thing. And then
Right.
if you, and look, I love working with, you have to work with your contractors. Your
Mm-hmm.
contractors are so business savvy, like these guys get it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're getting the benefit of the rewards on purchase at the expense of the designer, at what point do the designers say, hey, you know what, I need to take this back? And which
Sure.
also means that you have to go through the learning process of learning what appliances do what and what appliance companies sort of have their specialties
True,
in what areas.
true, and fair. And I mean, for me anyway, the contractors that I work with, they don't want any part of specifying. They make their money in other ways. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want to know from it. They don't want to arrange for delivery. They don't want any of it to deal with any of it. So they're happy to let me handle that. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's money to be made in that category. And um, listen, there's enough for these larger projects, especially the ones that we're doing right now. There's enough money to be made all around, especially, on the contracting side, because however they price their, that's a whole other animal and a whole other conversation, but however they price their services, whether it's cost plus or whatever it is, um, but yeah, I mean, I don't find that there are some builders who I've worked with in the past that I don't work with regularly who do want to keep all of the not specifying, but purchasing in-house, obviously, because they're taking markup or there's revenue in it for them somehow. But it always just, in my opinion, it always just becomes so freaking messy. So like we really like to keep all of that in house. And plus, like we're the trusted experts, like the clients really want us there and want our opinion, whatever that may be, whether it's just an aesthetic opinion or, you know, how are we know we want all these kitchens, but how are we going to use all these kitchens? And I mean, yeah, and like in these super luxe houses, like there's two kitchens right next to each other because like like you have like the show kitchen and then you have the back kitchen, which is like the butler's kitchen or whatever it is, that has like a wall oven in it and a microwave and a sink and a little there. It's a thing for sure.
And it's interesting. The last thing I wanted to touch on with you is you've done something in your marketing that I think is really unique, and that is, you put that word bold out there in bold and quite often. And I think that that's one of the things that really does set you apart, and it probably goes back to your fashion background. Do you worry that by putting that out there and putting a title, and not just being transparent insofar as you can work with someone who's traditional or someone who's subtle or someone who's bold or someone that you risk losing a certain segment of the clientele? Or conversely, it's like, no, this is the type of client that I want to work with, so I'm specifying that right at the front.
Yeah, it's that. I mean, I actually just rebranded. I just went through a whole rebrand. I just revamped my website. So I'm assuming that's what you're talking about is like the use of that in my marketing on my website
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. That was very intentional. I am not afraid. Like again, like I am who I am. Love me, hate me, whatever. It's okay. I'm okay with that, but I am who I am. Not everybody's going to love me, and or love is not the right word, but like resonate with my design style, and that's okay. But like for me, the business that I want to cultivate, that's important to me, is I want to work with people who I'm aligned with. I want to work with people. The majority of my clients, we end up being like best friends at the end of. I'm going out to dinner tonight. We just wrapped up a project, me and my contractor, with these amazing clients who we've been working with for the last year. They're taking us out for dinner tonight to celebrate. Like that's what I want. I want to work with people who align with me and my vision and my aesthetic, and I want to enjoy. I have had 20 years of experience in another career that didn't ultimately fill my cup. I didn't start this business to not enjoy it, right? So like it's very intentional. What I put out there is very intentional. I want to attract the people who are interested in that. I don't want somebody to come to me and say, we love French country style. Cause I'm like, really? Like, that's not me. So, cause it's not going to be enjoyable for me and I'm not a good fit for that. And that's okay. I'm not a good fit for everybody, but the people that I am, go ahead.
No, I'm just curious because of that. It's interesting because if you look at, we can always learn from other professions, right? And
Yeah.
if you look at the legal profession, you will have lawyers who will someone will recommend them or refer a client to them, and they'll be like, you know what, it's not what I do. I can't help you, but I'm going to refer you to this
Yeah.
person. And there's a kickback. There's a professional courtesy in financial remuneration offered to that individual for the referral. You know what's funny is I don't see that in our industry. I don't see one designer giving a project to somebody else because it's not really what they specify, what they specialize
It
in. And
depends. I mean, I think there's like old school and new school, like in my experience, like with what I've seen just in the last that I've been in this industry the last 3.5 years, there's definitely two different thought processes of people who run businesses, design businesses. There are some who keep everything very close to their chest and don't share information and don't, whatever. And then there's others who I like to think that I'm part of this bucket and this generation who I'm an open book. Like come to my office, look at what we're working on. Let's go out to lunch. Let's talk about how you do things versus how I do things. Let's talk about how you price versus how I price. Like we're only going to learn and grow from each other. And like maybe what you do is not right for me, but maybe it'll spark something in my brain and vice versa. Like some of my best friends are other designers. Like I like to be inclusive. And I understand the opposite side of it too. I really do, especially in an industry that is very saturated, and I've been burned. Don't think I haven't by being too open and too accommodating to other people, but you live and you learn and it's okay, you know, but yeah, I mean, there are definitely different thought processes for what you're describing.
I love it. Okay, so final thing. So you're going to High Point this year.
Yes.
You're going in April,
April.
and you're going to KBiz this year. Yes, no?
Probably. I haven't like booked it yet, but most likely, yeah.
Okay, I'll be speaking at KBiz this
Oh,
year. So come.
fun.
Will you do me a favor?
Yeah.
I will circle back with you.
Okay.
I am always looking for correspondents who are at these shows to sort of tell me what they like, what they don't like, what they
Mm-hmm.
see, what they
Mm-hmm.
what they think is emerging.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for you to be one of those people, and we'll check back with you.
Done. Sold.
Awesome. Awesome. Allison, this was great. I really
Yeah.
appreciate the
No,
time.
this was super fun. Thank you so much.
Design Hardware's newly remodeled showroom is where you will find a gallery-style space with a thoughtful display of products, purposefully positioned to allow unbridled exploration and discovery. High-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware selections are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find your inspiration. Collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your shopping list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles.
Allison, thank you. Loved our chat, and I so appreciate the time. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Thermosol, TimberTech, Pacific Sales, Monogram, and Design Hardware. Amazing companies and great friends to the trade, so please give them an opportunity for your next project. And thank you for listening, subscribing to the show, and sharing with your colleagues. If not already subscribing, please consider that so you receive every new episode automatically as soon as it's published to your podcast feed. Until next week, thank you for sharing this time together. Until the next episode, be well, stay focused, and now that it's arrived in earnest, try to stay above the chaos.